Good morning and welcome everybody. Today we are sitting with Fabienne Bühler, or Fabi as we refer to her here at Zitadel. She's our CPO and we're lucky enough to spend some time getting to know her and find out a little bit more about what we have set for us here at Zitadel in the coming future, and a little bit more about how things operate on the product side of the fence. So Fabi, welcome and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Jim. Yeah, sure. So my name, as Jim already said, is Fabienne, or as everyone calls me, Fabi. So I'm currently in the role as CPO at Zitadel. I do have a background in software engineering. So when we started with Zitadel, I was still developing a lot. I started out as software engineer. I never considered myself as the best software engineer, but I still think the background or the technical background helps me till today. As we grew with Citadel, we realized there's more to developing a product, developing a company than only having a lot of software engineers. So that was kind of the point where I switched to product management, and that's the position I'm still at. So yeah, I love to talk to a lot of customers and connecting all the dots between all the different teams we have. So for me, this was kind of a natural growth into that position. Besides that, during my free time, I'd love to stay away from my computer just to balance off a little bit of the screen time. So I love to be outdoors, going for some hikes in beautiful Switzerland, or spending time at the lake where I've also grew up. Or maybe during winter, I love to do some crocheting and knitting to get some things to craft.
Oh, I love it. And there's some definitely beautiful lakes there in Switzerland. But I've seen some of the code that you push, and you push code with the best of them. So I wouldn't falter that in any way, shape, or form.
I try. I always knew there are better ones. So I think it's important to know your strengths. And when you have better strengths than coding, it's good to switch to another position, I would say.
No, as you said, it was a natural progression. You're excelling in the role. So
definitely.
Excellent. Tell us a little bit about what it was like starting Zitadel.
Yeah, sure. A lot of us have been working together already before we started with Citadel. So we were working in the public sector, where we've been, we were in the government kind of team. We did a lot of web applications, and we were also the first team who did some web applications at that company. And the thing was that we didn't have a web-based user management or identity tool. And we initially just started implementing some simple use case for ourselves with like username and password. And goal was basically to replace that at one point. But yeah, as you can guess, that never happened, and we grew automatically into the identity and access management team at that point. So that was kind of our background. We started with implementing web applications and grew into the identity space from that point. In the government space, we did have a lot of multi-tenancy use cases because we do have like different cities. They all need to connect between each other. We have the country, and everyone needs to be, or a lot of people need to have availability or possibilities to access different organizations. So we saw there already the need and the use case for a multi-tenancy PM tool, which wasn't really existing at that point. And that's also where we started, basically. We saw the need, we saw the opportunity, and we also saw that this is not only a use case in the government space or in the public sector, this is also something for the general industry. And that's how we started. We built Citadel and started from scratch with the multi-tenancy approach that we saw a need for. Maybe as a fun fact, where we started with Citadel, at that point, we didn't have an office, we didn't have any environments where we could work for. So we just met each other in the city where we grew or where we've been living near. We worked from coffee shops and restaurants and switched to a bar at one point from a friend of us. So we could use his bar during the day before he opened up in the evening.
I love it. I would definitely raise a drink to that. I think it speaks volumes that everybody was already seasoned pros in the identity space, even before Zitadel came to fruition. So it definitely speaks to the high skill value that the team has across the board. And so amazing on that front.
Yeah, definitely. I think also this gives us or gave us an advantage. We've already built it. We built some of the things. We learned from the mistakes we did there. We've learned from the experience we had there. We knew what could we change, or what was a good thing that we already did in the past, and where could we evolve in the future.
I love it. I love it. Tell me a little bit about what it's like operating in day to day as a CPO at Citadel.
It's hard to say like this is a typical day. I think every day looks a little different, especially in a startup, I would say. So I think it's a lot about the balance between doing product discovery and product delivery. So one part definitely is spending a lot of time in the community, in the Discord, in GitHub, figuring out what are the requests from our community and the customers, talking to customers, hopping on a sales call, figuring out what they need, talking through their use cases, basically understand what their needs are and how we can bring value, and figuring out solutions that we can bring to the table. And I think the second part is connecting all the different stakeholders, which could be internal as well as external. We now are in a growing stage, I would say. So over the past half year, we have got to a point where we got a new team members, we got new teams. Before that, we didn't have the marketing team. So now I think the challenge is also to figure out, okay, how can we make sure everyone is aware of the information they need, everyone is involved at the right point in time, because we are not only engineers anymore, and everyone already knows how the product looks like and what we are currently doing, and then we just try to talk about it. We need to involve more stakeholders and figure out how we can do it.
Yeah, there's definitely that innate complexity there, but it also creates an incredible synergy when everybody starts to partner together across the organization. We're all driving towards the same goal. And so it makes a lot of fun too along the way.
Definitely, I agree. I think it's a challenge, but it's also really nice to see that how you can fill the gaps with new people, also get new experience on board, which we didn't have as like a most technical background team, I would say. I mean, 90% of the people who started at Citadel were software engineers. So we were definitely also lacking some parts of the story, and we'd love to get insights from other team members and figure out how we can connect each other.
A very technically adept team coming together to, at the end of the day, serve the customer and help save the identity space. I love it. Love it. So thinking about the identity space as a whole, can you go into a little bit of the common pitfalls that organizations can face when operating in the identity and access management area?
Yes, I think one of the biggest points is that actually it looks pretty simple at the beginning. I mean, I told you the story how we started initially at our previous company, where we just thought, okay, we need something. We didn't have anything at that point, and we just started with a simple user management. You just have first name, last name, an email address maybe, and a password. But you grow at one point, you start adding more applications, you start onboarding new customers, bigger customers with more needs than what you had initially. You realize that there are standards to the identity space, like OpenID Connect, some also different authentication methods, and it's constantly evolving. Like the market is changing so fast, I would say. And then you realize that it's maybe not as simple to build that by yourself, but it's also not that simple once you've already started building it, changing to a solution that already exists. So I think getting at that point, or considering at the beginning when you start, what does it involve? Where do I want to go with the product, and how could it look in the future? And already considering, does it make sense for myself to build this by myself, or do I want to look for a solution that can already cover most or all my use cases, so I don't have to investigate it myself? And one part there is probably the building part of the product, but the second part is also how do I operate and maintain it afterwards. I mean, we run our cloud. We also provide the possibility to use Citadel as self-hosted. And I think already now we can see that mostly like bigger companies who have the capacity, they can go into self-hosting. But especially for small teams which do not have a big operations department or engineering team, for them it's really hard to build everything from scratch. So they mostly look for cloud solutions, so they don't have to do everything by themselves.
So what I hear is, as each organization is slightly different, finding their needs and being able to facilitate that with our offering really makes a big difference there, especially when we have such a wide range of technical talent on the team to help make each situation work for the customer. Is that correct?
Yes, I think that's correct. So what I see is that with our unique approach, I would say on the multi-tenancy use case, we can cover a lot of different use cases. So basically we have a built base mainly for B2B, but also you can use it in B2C scenarios or for employees. So it's basically the base is there, and then we just give you possibilities to extend it when you have different needs or figure out how you could build your custom use cases or customize Citadel the way that you need it for your unique use case.
I think that's super interesting. Could you go a little bit more into some of the market advantage that Zitadel has in the IAM space?
Yes. So I think the multi-tenancy approach we have is definitely one of the unique selling points. I know there's now also other tools which go a little bit into the multi-tenancy part, but as we have that had in mind from the get-go, we built Citadel with that in mind. And it was not something we just added on top after we already had a basic identity solution. I think this gives us a really unique approach, even if that might look a little bit different to other competitors at the beginning. And sometimes it can be hard to explain everything to our customers, and they maybe have a more steep learning curve on that end. But once they get how Citadel works and how you can connect everything, it makes sense, and they are able to almost implement all of the use cases they have, or we can help them on how to build those out. The second point is probably the extensibility we try to implement. So what our approach there is that we want to cover the standard use cases that we see oftentimes, but then also give you the possibility to extend Citadel in a way that it works for your use case. This can be that you need more customization than what we offer in branding, for example. We offer basic color changes, but you might want to advance this to more complex branding, or that you can extend the workflows we already have, that when you create a user in Citadel that you want to trigger something in your application or interfere with the workflow we have. So basically our approach there is to give you the basic needs, so you don't have to implement that on your own, but also give you the possibility to extend it in the way that you can connect it into your architecture. We know that every customer has a different architecture. They have a different stack of tools. They have different hosting solutions. So we can't cover all the different use cases, but we know that we need to provide a solution that you can cover those from your aspect. Yeah, and the last point is probably I would say, open source self-hosting cloud solution. So we already knew from our past experience that self-hosting in cloud was really important to us. We knew that certain industries or companies don't have the possibility because of compliance reasons or legal questions to go into cloud. So for us, it was always crucial to also provide some self-hosting possibilities. And there we are already pretty committed to open source because we think this builds a lot of trust. It gives us the possibility that the community can work together with us. We get a lot of feedback from the community. So we see more advantages to that than disadvantages. We get the feedback. We can make Citadel even better with getting all the feedback from the community, and include what you need for or what our customers need and bring the value back that we see.
Wow. From listening to it, it sounds like a very thoughtful approach for approaching the space overall. How do you narrow down what feature you choose to go on to the product roadmap to make sure that it delivers the most value?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a balance. I mean, normally if you're like a closed source product, you only have like your customers who you're talking to. For us, there's so many more users, and a lot of times also unknown users. I mean, there's community members approaching us through GitHub. You can see the names, but you don't always know who is behind that, or also in the Discord community. So we try to find a balance between enterprise customers and the community. We, of course, try to collect the most feedback or all the feedback that we can in the community, in the open space. And we also encourage our enterprise customers to do so, because that's exactly the exchange we are looking for, to get all the feedback and make it publicly available. So we try to be as transparent as possible, but we also want to have that from our community and the customers. And then it's kind of a balance, figuring out, is there enterprise customers who need a feature where we also see sometimes different or bigger customers compared to the community. There you also have a lot of developers who just try something out. They have their example projects or their smaller project, and the use cases are sometimes a little bit different. But if we can see that there's a lot of tractions from the community, we definitely also want to build something for them and not only for our enterprise customers. I think in the end, it is always about, does it also align with our product vision and strategy and the company goals we have? Of course, we can't build something into the product that is only requested from the community, but we don't see a value in there for the whole product because it doesn't align with our strategy.
So it's very much about operating and delivering value first, regardless of segmentation, making sure that those that leverage Zitadel are able to thrive with it in their environment.
Yeah, exactly.
So with that being said, is there specific features coming into the product roadmap of 2025 or even beyond that you're really excited about?
Yeah, I think there are different ones. I would say the first part is we want to make this year about making great developer experience and make the first touch with Citadel as great as possible. What this means is we want to have a look at our APIs. How can we improve those? We know that our main customers are developers. They are the ones who integrate with Citadel. They are the ones who use Citadel. And then they just need to sell it internally most of the time, to talk to their team lead, to talk to other departments, to figure out how can we get that into the company. But they are the ones who integrate. And if they are satisfied, we are already at the better place. So we want to make great APIs. We want to make great SDKs. We're currently looking into how can we provide more SDKs for different languages and make those available for our customers. And also improving the whole onboarding experience, I would say. So basically, when you want to connect with Citadel, how can we make that as easy as possible for you? At the moment, the onboarding experience is sometimes a little steep. We know a lot of workarounds, we know a lot of use cases and how you can build it, but sometimes it's just not that obvious for our customers. So we want to make that more available. I think on the other hand, it's about more enterprise readiness, I would say. So one part in there is definitely that we want to have performance improvements. We want to make sure that we reach, I would say, linear scalability. If you reach a point with Citadel where you self-host and you get to a certain limit with performance because you have a growing user base, a growing organization base, more off requests, that you can just throw more CPU memory at Citadel and basically scale linearly, so you can double the amounts of users or of requests or requests in general you're doing. And the second part in the enterprise readiness is probably some of the features that we have on the roadmap, like group management that is requested by a lot of customers and also by the community. I would say at this point, this is the most upvoted issue that we see in our GitHub repository. So we definitely want to improve on that side as well. And in the second part of the year, there's a lot about giving analytics and make usage out of the data that we have in Citadel. So basically, we want to give you audit log analytics on how many logins do I have, how many failed logins do I have, daily active users and monthly active users, but also operational metrics to figure out how does Citadel look like? Is it healthy? Does every component work as I expect? Is there any troubles? To make actually the life of our customers easier when they self-host especially, and to figure out where do I have troubles, if I have troubles, and how can I solve them, and where can I improve? And also a little bit about like threat detection framework that we want to establish. So this is, in a first step, come up with a small feature that is something like a reCAPTCHA, but this should be the basics that we can advance those frameworks in the future and give you value based on the data that we have. We know we have a lot of data, we have a lot of insights, we know who did what at what point, and because of our unique event sourcing approach, we have that data since the beginning when you started with Citadel, and we can make something out of that data. So we want to figure out how can we make a threat detection framework and give you unique value based on that in the future, probably also with some AI train models to figure out how can we help you best with the data that we have.
I dig it, honestly. So thinking about that and everything that comes with the value of what features come through 2025 and even beyond, how does that get impacted or facilitated through a quarterly release schedule that we're migrating to?
Yeah. For the ones maybe who don't know, we did have a 2-week release schedule in the past. Basically, after each sprint, we just released a new version. This led to some problems for some of our customers, but also for us. One thing, or the biggest thing is probably that it was such a fast pace that it was really hard for our customers to keep up to date. We know that especially in bigger companies, they need to schedule, they need to figure out when do they upgrade. But if we send out a new version every 2 weeks, we release a new version with new features, it's really hard to keep up to date. And then we had times where customers were like lots of versions behind the latest version, and then it got even harder to keep up on speed and make sure that you upgraded to the newest version. Also, it was probably hard to figure out what was really the change between the version that the customer had to the version that is latest when you wanted to upgrade, because we just had the 2-week releases and we saw this is the changes. And if you upgraded version by version, it was no problem. But if you wanted to upgrade 20 versions at one point, it was really hard to figure out what actually changes. What do I need to prepare? Where do I need to figure out something? Or where do I need to have a look maybe also at breaking changes? You had to go through all the versions there. And also it was sometimes not obvious, can I even easily upgrade that version to the latest, or do I need to do some steps in between because we couldn't cover like all the migration paths? So that was basically one of the biggest decisions. From an internal perspective, I would say it allows us to give us a little bit more preparation. We take that now a little more serious because we don't have to change like every 2 weeks what we want to build. Of course, it gave the possibility that we could take in higher priorities every 2 weeks, but also that meant that we changed so fast that we couldn't maintain the roadmap that we have established because we changed always what we wanted to build. And also now with the 3-month schedule, we have a release candidate that we publish and have that for 1 month. So basically everyone who wants to test a new version already before it's a stable release can do so and give us feedback. So what we hope from that approach is that we have a more stable release, that we have more insights about bugs, that we have more testing time, also from an internal perspective. So this means we can publish a release candidates, then we can prepare proper demo material, we can properly do some documentation around it, which also means internal staff is doing a lot more tests and we figure out bugs earlier than if we publish the release candidate directly. I think, that's probably the biggest point. Also, it makes it a little bit easier to actually deprecate certain things because we were always a little bit afraid of deprecating all the stuff because in a 2-week cycle, it's hard to tell you when is something end of life. But now we have a more established approach, I would say, and you can definitely see the timeline and what's the approach behind that.
Yeah, so to me, it definitely sounds like it's a play towards doing more consistency as far as the product roadmap goes, making sure things are delivered on time. It allows more usability, both internally and externally, and even by proxy in some ways, improving developer experience across the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, definitely. What we also hope is that we get more reliable and stable versions so our customers don't face like early bugs when they actually migrate to a new version.
No, that's incredible. So how does that play into as we start to look into Zitadel's licensing change that's happened recently?
We've always been committed to open source. I would say we recently changed now with the newest version, version 3, from an Apache to an AGPL license. We have looked at different models and how our competitors or different other companies do the whole like licensing in the open source space, especially. And we were not really confident by any other solutions, like doing an open core and then do certain things on top. It just didn't feel right if you're committed to open source. And if you look from the open source perspective, AGPL is probably one of the only licenses besides Apache that you can use when you want to stay in the open source field. And we want to actually make sure that our customers and community contribute back in a certain way. When you use Citadel with AGPL and you contribute back, you publish your code, there's no problem to using Citadel at all. I think also for most customers, there is not really a big change by that license change. If they just use Citadel and don't do any changes at all, there's also nothing that changes for them. What we want to provide there is that basically, if you think that there should be something more advanced to Citadel, that you want to change certain things, that you also publish and contribute back to the community with that. On the other hand, of course, we are a company, we need to somehow commercialize also Citadel. And we also want to provide a commercial license. So in case that you can't publish your code and can't contribute back in a way that you want to open source your code or how you change Citadel, then you can always reach out to us and we will find a solution with a commercial license.
Very good. Very good. So thinking about that, and then we've touched on a lot of open source topics today and the value that open source drives us here at Zitadel. Can you talk about how people can contribute to the Zitadel ecosystem holistically?
Yeah, I think there's actually lots of ways on how to contribute. I think the first thought everyone has is, okay, I want to contribute some code. So that's the obvious point. I would say you just take any issue that we have in our GitHub repository. That can be some docs, that can be typos, that can be real code examples or code to the Citadel product. But also you can contribute an SDK, for example, or examples in general. So if you have an integration or a guide, or you did integrate with whatever tool, there's possibilities to contribute on that way as well. You can also just participate in our community. I think everyone appreciates if you get answers in the Discord channel. So if you already have a lot of knowledge about how Citadel works, you did test a lot of things, or you had unique ways on how to solve certain scenarios, and you see that other community members or customers face the same problems, it's also really valuable to just get your insights and get your help or answers to certain questions. Yeah, I think at the last point is probably also beta testing. So whenever we publish a new version or new features, we are always keen to hear how those work, get your feedback generally on any research that we are doing, where we want to see your opinion so we can develop Citadel in the right way. So we actually bring the value to our customers that they expect from us, and that we don't go in a wrong direction. But for this, we need all the feedback from the community and the customers. And I think the last point is just spreading the word. This can be by adding your company to our Optus list, or talking about us with friends, with colleagues, on Twitter. So whenever you like something about Citadel, or maybe also don't like, we'd love to hear about it and get all the feedback.
You know, that's one thing that I've always really enjoyed about being here at Zitadel is our vibrant community. Whether it be pull requests that come through the pipeline, people joining in on Discord events, or hearing back customers in the field, it really is nice to hear people share their honest opinion about it and how it's really helped change the organization for the better, even in some of the challenges that we face, recognizing we're a fast-growing startup. And so it feels really good to be able to help synergize that with customers as they really look to take flight to the next level on their identity experience.
Absolutely. I think that's like our community is amazing. Even if I think back to the beginning where we didn't have a Discord chat and we didn't have a community who interacted that fast, we were a little bit afraid of doing that because we thought maybe it's just like a lot of additional work. You then also need to focus on the chat. You need to help them. But I think the most amazing point was when we actually got the first contribution from an external community member to the Citadel repository, and we accepted that first PR for someone else. And also when we started seeing the community helping out each other and that they reacted to the questions that they saw and helped each other. And of course, we're still there. We still try to help as much as we can, but it's amazing to see how helpful each other is to everyone else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with that in mind, as you look for Zitadel's future, what are some of the areas you envision Citadel growing?
So our greater vision, I would say, is kind of like 3 steps. So first step is we want to provide the basic platform, and we see of it as a unified platform. We want to basically provide everything for your authentication and authorization needs. We see that there are also lots of tools which just have all the different parts for itself, and then you need to connect everything together. But we want to provide you basically with the whole platform and make that integration as easy as possible. Second part is what I've already talked about, then make this extensible with APIs, with Citadel actions, so you can interfere with the workflows. In the future, that could be a marketplace for actions, so we can actually exchange or share templates for integrations that we see oftentimes. So basically that you can build your whole ecosystem around Citadel in the center. And then the third step, I would say, is kind of that data value I've already talked about. With the data we collect from all our customers, we also have possibilities that we could do a unique approach where we train models based on like anonymized data from all our customers together. And then we could give those trained models back to all our customers, which also means that if you don't even have experienced any threat detection or any bugs or whatever, but another customer has, we could potentially give you the value back of we've already identified that unique threat vector and give you the value of we can identify that in your system as well, even if it doesn't even happen on your side. Besides that, I think there's some topics we're currently looking at. Fine-grained authorization is something that has grown over the last couple of months, I would say. So we are currently investigating how could we make that possible in Citadel. Hierarchies and groups is a topic that we often hear, even if we are not yet sure what it actually means, because I think a lot of customers have different approaches on how they would like to see that. So we are currently investigating in what does it actually mean, what would be the value we could bring there. Threat detection, analytics, and actions is probably are the 3 topics we want to look at.
Excellent. Excellent. So it sounds like an exciting road ahead for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think there will never be a stop. There's always opportunities you can go for.
I love it. So, lastly, thinking about it holistically in the event that you weren't in the tech industry today, what is another career path or area of expertise that you would have loved to have really focused on and grew in professionally?
I think that's actually a really hard question. I have so many different interests, and this can change like from one year to another. I can see that with my hobbies, those change like every year, and I'd like to explore new stuff. Generally, I love to work with people. I love to help people. So I could imagine maybe something like nutritional advice or psychology or something in that direction, but not sure if that's really where my strengths lay, but definitely something I would love to explore and get some insights about.
No, I mean, that continues to speak to your kind of customer first focus. So I love that. I love that.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me today and going through some of these questions and sharing your insights as operating as Citadel CPO. It really does make a difference.
Thank you. It was really great to talk to you and bring my insights to the table.
Oh, excellent. So For those in the audience, I would highly recommend joining in on the Discord community here at Zitadel. It's a great way to engage with the team and to share feedback. And if you look to contribute, whether through our open source projects or even just giving us a little piece of feedback, we'd always open to hear it. It's an exciting road ahead. Thank you again for joining us. Be sure to check out the link that we have where we go into a fireside chat with Florian as well. We'll continue to do this across the team holistically as we look more into getting insights from each member of the team and how Zitadel can help bring value to your organization and a little bit of fun along the way. Thank you again for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful day. And don't forget to like and subscribe down at the bottom.